God, I am stuck. I am so trapped here. I have no idea what to do. Hello, and welcome back to my channel. If you're new here, my name is Sheridan, and I make videos all about the Christian life. I'm curious if anyone else is in a season like I'm in. Do you feel like you have either been waiting for the promises of God and not seen any fulfillment of it, or have you been in transition and you just feel totally stuck in transition? Well, if you're in either of those camps, I'm going to talk about both of those. So part one is going to be all about the waiting, what to do with it, and navigating that season. And then part two is going to be, help, I'm stuck in transition and I just want to be to the other side. Okay, I was reading in Genesis recently, you know the story of Abraham and Sarah and their quest to become the father and mother of many nations and have a child, yet they were old as dirt and did not have any offspring. Well, there was a certain scripture that really stood out to me. In Genesis 16, it starts out with Sarai, Abram's wife, basically telling Abram, hey, since we can't have kids, sleep with my servant and have a kid through her. And the funny thing was, before this, God had already spoke to Abram several times that he was going to be the father of many nations and that he would have offspring come from him. And then in verse 3 of chapter 16, it says, so after Abram had been living in Canaan 10 years, Sarai, his wife, took her Egyptian slave Hagar and gave her to her husband to become his wife. He slept with Hagar and she conceived. And something about this really jumped out. Abram had been living in Canaan for 10 years at this point. Now, if you'll remember back to chapter 12, God had basically led Abram to leave his father and mother and go to the land that God would show him. So he planted his bottom in Canaan 10 years prior, and throughout this whole season, God had already been speaking to Abram about his promises to make him the father of nations. But after 10 years, they took matters into their own hands, and it just really struck me like, sometimes we get so tired of waiting, and we do not know what to do, and so we compromise and we take matters into our own hands. And I bet if you are a Christian, if you've walked with God long enough, you've had multiple seasons like that. So I want to take you back to almost 2 years ago. I found myself in a season I never thought I would be in. If you've been with me a little while, you will know that after grad school, God totally rerouted me and I got to work with this ministry for several years, and I honestly thought that I would be with them for like many years. I thought I would get married and have kids and be with them for the long haul. That's really what I felt like God had put on my heart. And then things abruptly changed with that ministry about 2 years ago. And then I found myself like overnight, pretty much jobless, homeless, confused, disoriented. And in the midst of that, things were going on in my family, and it was just a whirlwind of stuff. And then in the middle of that, the Ukraine war started. And if you know my background, I've been working with Slavic people for years, but I just found myself in this place where my world was turned on its head. And I'm like, God, what the heck just happened? I'm so confused. I'm so hurt. I am grieving. I feel traumatized. And I did not know even how to navigate this season, because I felt like I had all of these promises from God about what my life was going to look like and what I was going to do, and it all changed. And I found myself asking around at church, hey, is there someone I can stay with? Because my housing situation was connected to my job. And when all of that changed, I was like a chicken with its head cut off. I just didn't know what to do. So I felt like God told me to stay in the location I was. So a lady at church was willing to let me stay with her for a while, and I got a part-time nanny job, and I'm just getting involved at my church doing what I know to do. But like in a moment, all of my relationships were kind of stripped from me, and the job I had been with for several years, it's like the rug was pulled out from under me. And I was still far from home because my home was in Oklahoma, and I was across the country at the time. And so for months, I was just, first of all, I was going through counseling for everything that had happened, but I was also like, God, I feel like my purpose was ripped from me. I feel like I have no vision for my life and I don't know what to do. And then the Ukraine war started and I started having these dreams at night when I was sleeping about going to help the Ukrainians, and my heart was so for them. I love Slavic people. I feel like I am Slavic, even though I'm not. I'm 100% American. But I'm like, I just need something to do. I need something to do. And I had dream after dream after dream about going to Ukraine and to other Slavic nations. And I kept on knocking on so many doors to help with so many NGOs and ministries and missions organizations, and nothing was really clicking. I'm like, God, I am stuck. I am so trapped here. I have no idea what to do. And what do you do when everything that you knew, all the security of the season, all of the normalcy is just ripped from you and you're just left like confused? That's where I was at the beginning of 2022. I was confused and I felt like I had no purpose in life, which is not true. But when there's so much change at once, you just don't even know how to comprehend it sometimes. Here's the deal though. God is so faithful and his timing is perfect. And we can get so frustrated because we do not always understand the greater picture, God's greater timeline, what he's doing globally. And we don't understand how our puzzle piece fits in with the greater picture. And so month after month, I just became increasingly frustrated. The Ukrainian war, it started back in the end of February, and the door didn't open for me to go until basically July. And so really from the end of 2021 till about June of the following year, so over half a year, I just felt like I was twiddling my thumbs and I was just kind of stuck in this waiting period. Like, I don't really know what's going to happen with my life next. I sold everything to go work for this ministry. I mean, I really cut ties with the last season and now I'm here. But the reason I'm in this state doing these things, like it all changed. And so I just really began to seek the Lord, like, God, I need you to come through for me. And I went through my dream notebook just now, recalling all the ways God had spoken to me through dreams during that season. And I had a total of 7 dreams in that 6-month period of time where God was giving me insight in my sleep. He was telling me things like, wait, stay where you are, be patient. You're gonna go to Ukraine. You're gonna go to Ukraine. You're gonna go to Ukraine. Keep on knocking and the door will open for you. Be patient, hold the line. I haven't forgotten you. Like, these are the things God is telling me through all of these different symbolic dreams. And it was just a matter of encouraging my heart. God will come through for me. I have had closed door after closed door after closed door, but God will come through for me. I remember one night I was just so distraught and so frustrated, and I was just crying, and I was crying out to God like, I don't understand. I have sought you and I have knocked on every door and nothing is opening. And right then I had a picture in my mind's eye of Noah on the ark releasing a bird again and again and again to see if the dove would find dry land. And you know how the story goes. First the bird comes back with nothing, and then the bird comes back with like a little twig, and then the bird doesn't come back because the bird found dry land. And I just, in that moment, I felt like God was saying, release the bird again. Trust me. Trust me. Be willing to release the bird again. Ask me again. Ask me again. And guys, God came through. He came through. It came through a door I was not expecting, but a door opened for me to go to Ukraine. And ultimately that laid the foundation for a season that I'm just about to step into. I really believe that God has marked my heart for Slavic nations, but it took time to lay that foundation because there were a lot of moving parts, and we just have to understand that sometimes it's not going to be a 30-second microwave process. Sometimes God's process takes time. And I'm in a season right now where I'm kind of stuck in transition, and I will talk about that in part 2 of the video. But I just want you to know, when you're in the waiting, don't grow weary in well-doing, for at the right time you will reap a harvest if you don't quit, if you don't give up. You will win if you do not quit. The biggest temptation the enemy gives us in the waiting is to compromise, to sell out, to quit and go do something else because we get tired. So I am here to encourage you, don't give up. This will change. It will not last if you will hold the line, if you will keep your heart encouraged, if you will remind yourself continually of God's promises, you will make it to the other side. And the only other thing I would say to you in this video is it is so important to surround yourself with a faith-filled community who is going to encourage you in the promises of God. When I was in that season where I just felt like my life will never change and I'm waiting and waiting and nothing's happening, the goodness of God was to put me in a community of believers that was so strong and so encouraging that they kept on praying and prophesying over me and reminding me of God's call in my life and reminding me that God will be faithful, that the way it is not how it's going to be forever. God will come through for me. And let me tell you, over a year later, I can say, God did come through for me. Slowly by slowly, my housing situation changed, my job situation changed, my financial situation changed, everything changed, but it took a long time to get there. So you have to be faithful and you have to dig your feet in the ground and say, from this rock, I will not move. I will stand on Christ, the solid rock, my firm foundation. I'm not gonna run. I'm not gonna compromise. God told me he's gonna come through in this area. I'm standing here. Don't quit, you're gonna win. All right, join me for part 2 where I talk about what to do when you're in transition, but you feel stuck in transition, where one door has closed, but another door does not seem to have opened. All right, love you guys, bye.